digital media platform for women, and everything we do is all about inspiring you and giving you the tools and the resources and the conversations that you need to help you boost your confidence so you can create your big, beautiful life. I am Mo James, certified confidence coach and the founder of the Confetti Collective. And before we get into this conversation about shrinkage and why it's not your friend, I need to ask a question. I want to know, just because I'm nosy like that, are you wearing real clothes or are you wearing daytime pajamas at the time that you are watching this broadcast? Drop it in the comments. Let me know. I'm curious. I just want to know. I'm just interested in it. All right. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm excited to be here. Like I said, we are going to talk today about if you are a woman on a personal growth and or journey of evolution, if you're on that journey of growing yourself, of improving your life, of elevating your life, of living your best life, of creating your big, beautiful life, whatever it is, shrinkage is not your friend. And we're going to talk about two women that we can learn from and learn from their experiences, because I am all about surrounding myself with women in my real life, in my virtual life, and using their stories as my operating manual. If we are open to it, I believe that we can hear another woman's testimony and we can learn from it. Her story can make us better. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you today about shrinkage and why it's not your friend. Um, so when I say shrinkage, first, I'm not talking about the kind of shrinkage that you think about. Get your mind out together or leave it there. I don't know, but I'm not talking about that kind of shrinkage. So I am talking about the shrinkage that looks like our deliberate lack of growth in our lives, right? The word shrink is a verb that means to become smaller in size or amount, right? So what I'm talking about has nothing to do with the mood that you might be in or who you might be with. It is all about your deliberate lack of growth. And sometimes that deliberate, is related to your actions or inactions, or it could be related to somebody else's actions or inactions. The point here is that it's happening. The takeaway here is that it's affecting your life, and it's affecting the depth and the width and the height of your life. So that's why it's not your friend. And I get it. Sometimes, we're having this conversation as women, and we all know, we can all think of a situation where being quiet or folding ourselves or, not saying the thing that's on our mind has been about our survival, right? We can all think of a situation or two, a time or two where it's been necessary that we not be our whole self, for our sake, for our family's sake, for other people's sakes. It just made sense in the moment for us to shrink. But I don't want us to make that a habit, because it causes us to forfeit what we are supposed to have in this life. We miss out on things. And if we are not taking ourselves through the process of asking ourselves questions, like honest, objective questions, or what I like to call interrogating our experiences, really looking back at stuff that we've been through, situations that we've been in, and really look at them objectively and say, okay, well, how did that end up like that? Or why did I say this? Or why did I respond in this way? When we get into the habit of not doing those things, we act without thinking. And that could lend to us shrinking ourselves, or lend to us being put in a box and staying there. And I kind of feel like that's not what we're here to do. We are here, I believe that we are here to enjoy the fullness of our lives. We are not here just to skate on the surface of things and not get deep and not learn anything and not grow intentionally. So this conversation might be uncomfortable for some of us, some of you watching, and that's okay. Um, because it's in those uncomfortable moments that if we're willing to go through it, we can grow. There's growth on the other side. So like I said, my my intent for having this conversation is to encourage all of us to get deep, to stretch ourselves, to step outside of our comfort zones, and not let shrinkage run our lives. So, like I said at the top, there are two women that we can examine their experiences and see how shrinkage in our lives is not our friend. And one of these women is a real life person, and the other one is a fictional character. And we're going to talk about both. So the first woman is Mariah Carey. Um, Mariah Carey's memoir came out today, I think. At the time of this live, I think it came out today. And her memoir is called The Making of Mariah Carey. And she talks about her life. She writes about her life and talks about all of the stuff that she's gone through. A lot of the things that, as fans, or even if you're not a fan, but you just know of her, you kind of thought you knew, but didn't really know. And I have been watching a couple of interviews that she did, a kind of extensive interview with Oprah on Apple TV last week that I watched about the book, and she's talking about her experiences. And in one of she talks about her marriages, and she talks about her whole life, stuff she's been dealing with and going through since childhood. But she talks specifically about being in her first marriage with Tommy Mottola, who at the time was the CEO of her record label. I think it was Sony Records. It was the label that she was signed on. He was the CEO of the label. And she talks about how that marriage was very oppressive to her. Like he stifled her. He was the epitome of a helicopter husband, if there is such a thing. She couldn't move without being monitored or questioned. She couldn't do anything. She couldn't go anywhere. And at one point in the interview, she says, my voice was being heard all over the world, but I didn't have a voice in my own home. Wow. So she, at the time that she was married to him, had just came on the scene. First couple of albums had just come out. So people were hearing her song and singing her songs. So her voice was being heard, but her voice wasn't being heard. She couldn't speak up for herself in her marriage. She felt like a prisoner in her own home. And she even calls the house that they built Sing Sing because it felt like a prison. And that is an example of when we are forced to shrink, right? Sometimes shrinkage happens in our lives and it's not always malicious, although this example is. This was an example of an intentional, somebody deliberately causing us to be small, or deliberately causing us to be quiet, or forcing us into a box that does not contain us. And this is the thing, this is why I want to have this conversation, because the people that force us to shrink, they know who we are. They know what we are. They don't want us to recognize who we are and what we are. So the intention is to put us in a box so we never get a chance to discover who and what we are and what our potential is in this life. They see it in us. And when they recognize that we don't recognize it, then they deliberately attempt to control it and to stifle it and to push it down. And she talks in the book that it took her years to get out of that marriage and to get out from under this man's thumb, because that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like when somebody forces you to shrink, forces you to be small, and forces you to be silent. And if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to explore who we are and to really dig deep through our own layers, I am fascinated with discovering me. Like I am just, it's a joy for me to learn more and more and more about who I am as a woman, keeping in mind that every year, every day that I get up, I am evolving. So, and I want to know, I want to explore those evolutions. I want to explore those layers. And in her case, she was growing as a woman. And as she was growing as a woman, she was realizing, okay, this ain't it. This is not the life for me. I am not supposed to be singing these songs and looking looking one way from the outside, but internally feeling like a prisoner in my own life. This ain't me, dog. This is not for me. And and she had to fight her way out of that. So that is an example of that forced shrinkage that is not our friend when we are on a journey of growth and evolution. The key in that is we got to recognize, we have to be willing to endure the process of discovering ourselves and audit who is in our life. Audit who's in our life, because the shrinkage isn't always malicious. It's not always done with evil intent, right? Sometimes, in the example of this other woman, this fictional character, it's soft and it feels comfortable, but it's still shrinkage. Second woman is Hippolyta, the character Hippolyta from Lovecraft Country. If you are watching Lovecraft Country, let me know in the comments. Drop a LC, Lovecraft Country, in the comments and let me know if you are watching the show. It's an amazing show. Even the book is even better. The show is good. The show is so good. The book is gooder. But what we're going to talk about, you don't need to be familiar with the show, or you don't need to be watching the show to still get this gem. Okay. So in episode 7 of the show, which just aired this past Sunday, the title of the show is I Am. And it centers on a woman in the show who we've seen throughout all of the episodes. She's the main character, I guess, is aunt. Her name is Hippolyta. And early on in the series, she loses her husband. And we see her kind of go through her grief, where she is just agitated. Like she's agitated. She's ripping up stuff. She, snapping at people. And in this most recent episode, she goes on this journey of self-discovery. She goes on this journey of, through these otherworldly experiences, and she really discovers the totality of who she is, because the existence that she had was just a piece of her. Write that down. That's the first lesson. That wasn't even a planned lesson. But the existence that she had wasn't even all that she is as a woman. It's just a piece. And in the episode, she goes on this journey that takes her into these different experiences where she gets to explore these parts of herself. That's what I said this. Be fascinated, be curious with exploring you. You, the woman. Explore yourself. Become fascinated with discovering who she is, who you are as a woman. And at one point in the episode, she's having an experience. She's having a conversation with her husband. And she's telling her husband about these experiences that she's had. And then she starts to say, well, you know what? She says something to the effect of, I used to think that I was big enough to have every right to name something out of this world. Because earlier in the season, she tells her daughter about an experience that she had where, as a kid, she actually named a planet in the solar system, a star in the solar system. But the powers that be didn't want a little black girl to be the face of this campaign where they got to name the star. So they decided the name that she gave was attached to a white girl, and that white girl's face was put in front of this campaign. So it comes on HBO. Lovecraft Country comes on HBO. So she's telling her husband, after she's had these experiences, she says, I used to think that I had every right to name something out of this world. And then I just started shrinking myself. She started shrinking herself. And then she tells her husband, I thought you knew I thought you recognized that I was shrinking. I thought you could see that I was putting myself into a box. And at first, her husband, being a man, is like, oh no, no. I knew, but yeah, you're right. I knew. Not only did her husband know that she was shrinking herself, but he admits to her that he helped her do it. He admits to her, he said, I allowed you to do it. I helped you do it because if you shrunk, your shrinking gave me the opportunity to live my dream. Your shrinking gave me the freedom to go out and do what I wanted to do in life because I could bet on having a stable home that you was providing. So in that moment, he goes from first kind of rejecting it, and that's a whole different lesson about, we have these conversations about toxic masculinity, and a lot of times that toxicity doesn't always taste nasty. It isn't always malicious. Again, sometimes that toxic masculinity can look like the man in your life allowing you and watching you shrink yourself and being okay with you doing it because it lets him do what he wants to do. But at the end of the day, women, it's on us. It's on us. It's our responsibility to embrace and protect our bigness. At the end of the day, whether the shrinkage is happening from malicious intent or the person that loves us the most in this world is helping us do it, regardless of the angle that is coming from, it's our responsibility to discover everything that we are and to protect and preserve and live out our bigness. Everything that we are responsible for living it out. We are responsible for operating in all of ourselves, in all the layers, in all of the pieces, in all of the corners. We can't blame other people for our compliance in our shrinkage, because the situation with Hippolyta was so good because once she had that revelation, she was determined not to go back to that. Once she recognized, I am more than just so-and-so's wife. I am warrior. I am discoverer. I am a free woman, free to do every and anything that I want to do. Once she had that revelation, she knew she could not go back to the status quo. She couldn't go back to the status quo. She could not shrink herself willingly because she was aware of everything that she was. And shrinking was just unacceptable. That's why if you are on a journey of growth and evolution, shrinkage is not your friend. You have something to do in this world, and you can't do it if you are shrinking yourself, if you are stifling your voice, if you are letting fear keep you quiet. You can't do it, sis. You can't do it. The lesson from both of these women, Mariah Carey, real person, Hippolyta from Lovecraft Country, fictional character, the lesson is this: be fascinated, be so fascinated and so enthralled with you that you are on a mission to discover everything that you are. You know how when you're in a relationship with somebody, y'all know the beginning of the relationship, and you just want to know everything. You want to know where they came from and what time they were born and what the weather was like when they went to kindergarten. You want to know all the things about them. How about we bring that same energy to ourselves? How about we recognize that we don't know everything that we should know about us? There are parts of ourselves that we have yet to explore. How about that? How about we pay that much attention into discovering who we are deep down, so that when shrinkage comes down the street, we will know it for what it is. We will be able to call it out and tell it to go somewhere else. Tell it, I'm not the one. Don't come for me. I didn't send for you. Be so enthralled and interested in yourself, and give yourself the room to discover every single part of you. Because I know that there are some of you watching that are probably like, well, you know what, Mo, that's nice for you to say. I mean, you got this big mouth and everything, and you can do all the things. Listen here. There's a warrior in you too. Mine manifests with this. Your warrior probably comes out in another way. It's your job to discover her and let her out. Because there you will find yourself in situations where you will need to call her up. And if you have not given yourself a chance to get to know her, you won't know how to let her step up and be who you need to be in that moment. Because what is so rich about this last episode of Lovecraft Country is we saw the different parts of Hippolyta come out in those different situations. When she was at war, when she needed to fight, when she had something to defend, she was all warrior. When she was feeling flirtatious and she was discovering her sexuality, it was a different part of her that came out. When she needed to recognize that she could be a wife and still be all of these other pieces, another part came out. That's what life is, y'all. That's what this journey is. I want every single one of us here, if we recognize that we've been shrinking ourselves, recognize it first, acknowledge it, and then do the work to change it. Give yourself the room to start exploring those things that you like, or maybe those things that you told yourself you want to do, or want to try, or want to experiment with. Do it. That's the only way you're going to know. And two, pay close attention to who is speaking over you and who is speaking things to you. The words might not always be gentle, but they might be what you need to hear. If it allows you to grow in a way that you have yet to grow, if it allows you an opportunity to explore parts of you that you never have, be willing to go through the process. So, shrinkage is not your friend. If you see it in your life, cut it off, cut it out, shut it down, whatever, but get rid of it. It's not here to help you. It's here to hinder you. It's here to keep you boxed in. It's here to make you be quiet. It's here to stop your growth. And you can't be on a journey of growth and be in an entanglement with something that stops your growth. So let's, from this point forward, choose that shrinkage is not our friend. And let's choose that we're going to take a small step. It could be a baby step in the direction of our expansion. Let's get all of it. Every bit that's out here for us. Let's get it. Thank you all so much for being here. Drop your takeaways in the comments. I would love to hear them. I want to know if you watched the episode 7, I Am, of Lovecraft Country. And I will also post a link in the caption where I can on the platforms that allow me to, for Mariah Carey's new book. It just came out today, The Meaning of Mariah Carey. So again, I believe that there are lessons for us all over, everywhere. Life is always trying to teach us stuff. And If we're open to it, we can see similarities in a lesson from a pop star and a character on a TV show. Both of these women are telling us the same thing. We just got to choose and decide if we're going to act like we know and then apply what we say we know. So thank you all so very much for tuning in. If you are not already following the Confetti Collective, this is an example of what we do here. We have real conversations about real things, because this real work that we have to do, this real growth that we're trying to get, this real glow up is real. And it requires some realness. So I thank you all so much for being here. If there was something that was said that spoke to you, then I encourage you to share this with the woman that you care about in your life, so that she can get her own takeaways. And then y'all can talk about it later. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I will catch you later.